Venezuela by Ernest Sorokin and Andrew Herrick. Thesis: The failure of attempted colonization by the Spanish has paved the way to the current economic, political, and social challenges that Venezuela now faces. Colonization and Cold War impact. During the era of new imperialism, Venezuela was one of the countries that Spain attempted to colonize. Spain succeeded in colonizing Venezuela, which was part of Gran Colombia at the time. Spain thought that by conquering Gran Colombia and Venezuela, they'd be able to exponentially expand their empire and also to satisfy their thirst for gold that supposedly coated the area. Spain simply overpowered the minuscule Venezuelan population. The Venezuelans were poorly armed and were just mere farmers, while Spain had one of the most advanced militaries in the world. Spain found Venezuela appealing mostly due to its geographical location. The long coastline provided protection from pirates and other outside threats. The area was also filled with rich soil that the Spanish sought to farm on. Venezuela was a main target of influence for the US, Russia, and other countries, largely due to its massive supply of oil. Countries like the US and Russia tried to win Venezuela over by offering military support, money, and supplies. While doing this, both countries tried to ward the other off in various ways. To contain communism spread by Russia, the US educated Venezuelan youth and military against it. The US also influenced the foundation of Venezuelan government by shaping it to their will. The United States gave Venezuela loads of support during the Cold War in hopes to stop the spread of communism while also being able to export oil out of the country. Russia tried to stir up the political tensions among the US and Venezuela. Russia and the US are constantly trying to influence Venezuelan economy and government in their favor in hopes to instill political beliefs and, more importantly, gain supply of the oil, gain supply of the oil that lies there. During the process of decolonization, Venezuelan civilian political leaders boldly advocated for independence. In 1806, Francisco de Miranda, a general during the French Revolution, was called to Gran Colombia to lead a junta, which is a political committee. During those years, he would help draft the country's Declaration of Independence. However, betraying many military leaders, he signed an armistice with the Spanish. They turned him into the Spaniards, who then banished Miranda to a prison where he lived for the rest of his life. While this attempt was in vain, in early 1813, the junta appointed Simon Bolivar to carry on what Miranda started. His forces were highly opposed by the Royalists, but he quickly gained support from the Llaneros, the Irish, British, and the Black community. Even the government of Haiti sent troops to help. On October 9, 1823, the Royalist armies surrendered at Puerto Cabello. The following year, the Venezuelan military liberated Bolivia. In 1830, civilians were completely free from Spanish rule and independence was finally granted. Right after the Spanish were overthrown, the Caudillos, leaders who governed by force, controlled the land. Their rule was long and despised. The superiors led a borderline dictatorship and used power solely for their own gain. Similar to their predecessors, the Spanish, the Caudillos were a military and also royalty group. During the Cold War, Venezuela was often influenced by the US and their condemning of communism. He also began to shape the development of political structures and create a democracy by training leaders of political parties, civil society, and media groups. One of the main controversies is the Venezuelan presidential crisis. In 2013, Hugo Chavez was succeeded by his right-hand man, Nicolas Maduro. However, during his time in office, the Venezuelan economy rapidly collapsed. Food and supply shortages plagued families, prompting more than 5 million citizens to leave. Maduro was mutually overthrown, and the National Assembly leader, Juan Guaido, took over as interim president. Currently, the country is split into two opposing groups, those that still support Maduro and those that condemn him. Many Venezuelans believe that the US is somehow influencing the electoral conflict in favor of Juan Guaido. On the other hand, some claim that Russia promotes ex-President Maduro largely because of the oil trading he has allowed between the two countries. Both the US and Russia have been trying to install their influence on Venezuela since the Cold War. The reasons behind it have changed, but their constant intervention still remains. The legacy of Venezuelan decolonization is seen in the fight over power and the unserving of political leaders, which has plagued the country ever since it first gained its independence.